Hi everyone, welcome back to Social Studies. We are going to keep learning about location today, and we are going to really dig deeper into lines of latitude and lines of longitude. So remember, lines of latitude are side-to-side lines. They're horizontal. Lines of longitude go up and down. They are vertical. I want you to show me with either your finger right now or with your arms these different lines when I say them. So first, show me lines of latitude. So you should be going side to side with your finger, or your arm should be side to side. Good. Show me lines of longitude now. Should be going up and down. Up and down, those are vertical lines for lines of longitude. I'm going to go ahead and read our little passage here. This is the important lines of latitude. We divide up the world for mapping purposes. Imagine a horizontal line that runs around the middle of the world. Cartographers actually draw this imaginary line on many of the maps that they make. They call this line the equator. The equator divides the map of the world into halves, called the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. The prefix hemi means half, so a hemisphere is half of a sphere. The Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle are two important lines of latitude that are to the north of the equator. The Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle are lines to the south. So if we look on our map here, I want you to point to, let me see if I can get a little bigger, point to the equator of our map. Go ahead and point to the equator. Drag your finger along the equator. See if you can drag your finger along the equator. Be dragging it like this. That dotted line there, it says equator right here. That is our equator. Right above it, the Tropic of Cancer. That is that line there, and the Tropic of Capricorn is this other line here. So when we are looking at this map, we know the equator cuts it right in half. So that means everything north of the equator, everything up here, this is north of the equator, that is the northern hemisphere. Again, if we have it cut in half, everything below the equator is our southern hemisphere. So we have our northern, everything up here, and our southern hemisphere, everything below. If you remember from yesterday, we also talked about lines of longitude. So look at this map for just a moment. We still see our equator on our map, but we also see something else called a prime meridian. I want you to take a look at that word right here. Think about that as we're reading. Cartographers also draw lines from the North Pole to the South Pole on maps. The prime meridian is one of these lines. It divides the world into halves called the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere. The vertical lines of longitude that go from the North Pole to the South Pole show how far east and west places are from the prime meridian. We call these lines meridians. So again, looking at my map here, my prime meridian is that blue line right here, that dotted line that goes right through the center vertically. So everything on this side of that line is the Eastern Hemisphere. If I come back to this line, everything on the other side, over here, this is the Western Hemisphere. So think to yourself, after this map and the other map that we went over, how many hemispheres are there? How many hemispheres can we divide our globe into? If you said 4, that would be the correct answer. We have our northern hemisphere up here and our southern hemisphere down here. Eastern hemisphere to the side and Western Hemisphere on this side. So think to yourself then, this is where it might get a little tricky for you. Think to yourself, what hemispheres, there are two, what hemispheres is the continent of North America located in? So look on your map here. What continent is North America in? If you said it's in the northern, and western hemisphere, you would be correct. It is in both. Because if we're looking at our equator, above the equator is the northern hemisphere, which North America is in. But if we're looking at the prime meridian, it's also in the western hemisphere. All right, so it is actually in both. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. So just a brief lesson there on longitude and latitude lines. Remember, longitude goes vertical, up and down, and latitude goes side to side, horizontal. Make sure you watch your next video for your lesson.